Hello, my beautiful humans. Miss J here. This is the Miss J Experience, which is a show that's actually a conversation about the experience of life. Together, we're going to dissect the juicy details and develop habits together that make a more fruitful experience. Today's episode, I'm super excited about, is with the incredible Danielle Bertoli, and we're going to be discussing being a business artist and what that means. If you're not a business artist, you can sub in entrepreneur, etc. Just come on this journey with us and let's enjoy the experience together. Super excited to have Danielle Bertoli. I wasn't going to say it like that, but she said it like that, and now I'm obsessed. Author extraordinaire, I would say social media actually extraordinaire because you do it well. All these things extraordinaire. So I want to ask you, what is the Danielle come up story? I know we're still coming up, but what is it up to now?
The Danielle come up story. I have always been somebody who is a big feeler, a big thinker. I feel like you can relate to that.
Yes, I think so. The people that know me.
Very sensitive to environments, just somebody that processes a lot. And a lot of people are like that, but growing up, especially when you're a teenager, you don't really know how to navigate that.
Right.
You feel like an outsider to your life. It's not the coolest thing in the world to be the person that feels more than others, that wants to talk about emotions.
Or we're loud, or we're this, you know.
Yeah. And so a lot of my life, at least in my earlier years, I felt very alone in my experiences and almost like an outsider to my life. And for anybody who feels that way, you want to feel included. So I began at an early age reading a lot of spiritual books. I was always trying to figure myself out so that I didn't feel so isolated.
I love that.
And so my spiritual path started younger out of a desire to not feel so different and so other. So I began writing a lot because writing was how I processed my emotions. Writing was how I was able to articulate things that were unseen or unfelt. It was like putting them down on paper. It was, oh, that's why I feel that way. Oh, like this is what this means. And so writing became a passion. And eventually I started a blog, Struck Inside Out.
Yes, love it. One of my faves.
Thank you. And so then from there, I was like, you know what? I have all of these blog posts after years and years. I wanted to write a book. So I took some of those blog posts. I took some of the free newsletters that I was sending out every Sunday.
Nice.
And I hired an editor and I hired anybody that I would need to self-publish my book.
Right.
And I turned those blog posts plus other new writing into Struck Inside Out, which is now essays and poetry on relationships, life, wellness, spirituality.
That's incredible.
All of that.
Because you're saying, we had a guest on the second episode who I kept telling her to have that kind of foresight at such a young age is truly incredible, because when you're talking about that experience in school, you know, I completely went inward and really thought it was all my fault that I was the way I was, and that kind of self-introspection did not start till later. And I'm very fascinated, especially with women, because, you know, when those teenage years are a little rough with the hormones, on how you go on that journey. If, like, let's say, are your parents like that, or was it in your culture of your house with your caretakers? Or were you doing that because it was not in that culture and you kind of like, it was that slight rebellion of, now I'm going to find that spirituality? Because to do that at such a young age is really fascinating, because you really don't have that self-introspection until like later on. And so you experience so much that you're like, oh, maybe there is a reason why all these things happen. Yeah. So where do you think that came from?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because as I was saying that story, my oldest sister is 15 years older than me.
Oh.
And when I was in first grade, she moved out to California to be an actress and got into the Hollywood scene.
I love that, because my sister's older than me, and she
that much older
brought me into LA 6 years.
Oh, okay.
And she was behind the scenes, but that's just so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And so when she went out there, she had her own journey there, I think for 10 or 15 years, and she got into the spiritual community there. Okay. And I looked up to her. I adored my sister.
Of course, as the younger sisters do, you know.
Like all my friends in school were like, your sister's an actress in Hollywood? Yes. You know, like everybody thought she was going to be famous.
Right. Because that happens so quickly and easily.
Yeah, I know. I was always saying, my sister is going to be famous. She's on this
Right?
movie. Or,
Exactly.
You know? And she would come to New York twice a year when she lived in LA, and she would introduce me to a lot of the stuff that she was then reading, that she was getting involved in. And back then it was kind of like the angel cards.
Yes.
The angel, you know, that was the gateway.
They say the hippy-dippy stuff, but you know, it's the good stuff.
But it's kind of like the gateway. It's
Yes.
like the gateway into the deeper stuff.
Yes.
And so once I started to get my hands on that, I noticed that when you read those books, you're reading books from authors, most are on the spiritual path, were also people who felt very alone and isolated in their life. And that's why they became more spiritual. That's why they became who they are, is a lot of that is born from pain.
So
a lot of that
true.
is born from feeling really alone in your experiences, where you're looking for anything to kind of guide you and lead the way. So my sister was a huge influence.
Well, I love
up.
that, because that's the exploration of, you know, like feminine lineage, right? And who has come before us. You know, I do a lot of that work now of like, it's not even work, of just like reminding myself. I think sometimes, especially in this climate and this world that we live in, you know, we forget, because it feels so hard now, that really, like, especially being like a young woman now achieving what we're achieving, you know, that didn't exist not very long ago. And I think sometimes just taking a moment to like recognize that, and also like the respect. I kind of flirt with the idea of like the respect of those women, because they also work so hard to get to where we are now. And I think, you know, like our sisters are so important, because mine's 6 years older, which, you know, I was similar. Like, she was the cool senior, and like I was getting driven in her, like, you know, was it the Cavalier, I think, at the time? And, you know, and I was like so cool, and I was the younger sister, and she was cool, so I was like Nikki's sister, you know. But you know, I was like reading.
I forgot about all those little
I know, like I got in
about.
trouble because like I read her like Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, and I like brought it to school, and my English teacher was like, "Why are you reading that?" I'm like, "Well, my sister reads it, and that means it's cool." And like, but you know, in a way, because I say musically, my music is born of my sister and my dad, and not that my mom doesn't have music taste, but really my sister and my dad. And I do love that idea, because spirituality we didn't have together, but like music was like our spirituality, going to shows, going to concerts, showing me the new. My mom would be like, I bought the CD that you asked for, you know, like, and that was our religion. But I want to go back, because what I love that you broke down, like, it was the blog. Well, you wrote to express and to feel and to learn and understand, and then it became the blog, and then it developed into a book, and the you know, that brand you established is now they call a brand. And you really, like, it took me forever, not forever with amazing Christy Elefante, but it took me a long time to find the brand, because I do so much. And how do we make an umbrella that allows me to be all the facets of myself? But it was a lot of messy, like, I was this, I was a band name for a long time, and then that was a distribution nightmare when I changed that name. So it feels, and obviously it's not this linear, but like that type of linear development of a business is, when you're not like a business major at, you know, Harvard Business School, where does that come from? Because I'm still trying to find it. No, I'm kidding. But like, it really is like the way you described it. And obviously you're a writer, and you know, from what I've read of yours and your podcast too, as well, which you need to listen. We'll put it in the notes. It's amazing, your voice.
Thank you.
You know, you are very eloquent. You are highly intelligent, yes, and how did that unfold into such a successful brand development, really? If we're using the modern age, you know, brand, everybody has to have their brand, you know, how did that develop?
Well, it definitely wasn't so linear. That was obviously the SparkNotes little version, but I talked about writing a book for years, and like anybody who wants to write a book, it's easy to talk about it rather than do it. So for years and years, I would say I'm writing my book, and I was, but I really wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, like I would
That's the phase I'm in now. I like wrote for like 2 months. I'm like, I'm writing my book. And then I was like, I'm writing my book, but then like I haven't written in like 2 months. So then I'm like, I'm not writing my book, but I'm like thinking about my book.
Yeah, and it's hard because when you're in that flow, it's easy to wake up every day. Like I'm a morning person, I have to write in the morning or I won't do it later. I won't. I'll come up with a million excuses not to.
Right.
And then when I fall out of it, it's so hard to get right back into writing. There's so much resistance. But so when COVID happened, I was living alone, and at that point, for 3 or 4 years, I was talking about writing this book. And I said, if I don't do it now, I live alone, I have to do it now.
Yeah.
So I actually tried to get it traditionally published first.
Right.
I wrote a book proposal, which was so out of my comfort zone and not my style. It was like a 40-page proposal. AI wasn't around then. There was no ChatGPT to help.
Which is crazy because it's not that long ago, but the adjustment in that is wild.
Yeah. So I was YouTube videos, I was reaching out to people, I was looking on forums and websites. And so for a year, I sent my book proposal out to publishing houses, to agents, and I was getting rejection email. And after a year, I said, you know what, I'm not waiting anymore. I could do this on my own. I went to Hay House's Writer's Workshop. They taught you how to self-publish. 90% of books are self-published today, if not more. And so that's when I went on to this website, Readsy, and I hired an editor, designer, typesetter, everybody to help me do that. So it was years of talking about it, a year of trying to do it the traditional route. And then that's when I decided to self-publish. I formed an LLC. That's when it became more of a business.
Yeah.
But during that time as well, I was sharing meditations on Insight Timer. I started a podcast.
Oh my gosh, I love Insight. You're on Insight Timer?
Yeah.
This is why, actually, specifically why I do these conversations, because I have been such a fan from afar, and we've been dying to work together. We've tried to work together from my end. And to have that moment, like Insight Timer is like saved. My coach has sent me Insight Timer, and I love it. I'm just like, I'm gonna immediately go find that because of your voice. I'm like, oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Thank you.
That, like, again though, thinking outside the box, putting yourself in positions to where opportunities are coming, and it's also like another form of training. Mm-hmm. Again, like that's so business forward without having a business degree, if you say.
But it took, because I was used to going to a coffee shop saying I would write and not write. So then I was like, okay, once I decided that this was what I was going to do, I stopped making plans on the weekend. I stopped drinking alcohol. I remember
that was a big thing that you talked about a lot.
Yeah. So I set myself up for success, because if I drank the night before, I did not want to write the next day.
Who does?
If I had plans, like that weekend time had to be for me if I really wanted to get it done. So I think, to get back to your question, it definitely was a very organic, fluid process. There was no real premeditation of this is the step I have to take and then this. It was kind of like, okay, here I am. I formed an LLC. What's next? Let me go on YouTube and look up free videos about how to do this. Let me reach out to this friend who self-published a book and see how she did it. It was really kind of scrappy and very, doing what
organic.
I could from free resources.
I love that, because I have another friend who will be on the show, another incredible writer, very different type of writing, but she's going the traditional route right now, and it's the same like, as independent artists, you try to get signed or do you stay independent, both are equally grueling, but one I own my own publishing and one I don't. So but there's also an element to signing with a bigger person or a bigger label, and you can argue both sides. But what I also love that you just said, because this is something that my 2026 mantra was, one of them, was you cannot expect change to happen in your life if you don't change your habits, which is such a simple statement, but it is so heavy, because that's the reality. Like, my reality was, if I wanted my life to be the business of music, I had to change my habits and change what I was doing. And that, I think, is the hardest thing. Like you said, it doesn't have to be, extreme, or not that not drinking is extreme, because it is a toxin and you shouldn't have toxins in your body a lot. But for a lot of people, that's a lot to say, oh, well, now I'm going to adjust my weekend plans. But in reality, what you're saying, what is my priority? Because you're going to have a million weekends in your life. And, for this span of a year, let's say, your weekends are making a book, but you're investing in yourself. So I think that kind of, and all we're talking about is perspective shifts. Was that a conscious shift? Because it was rooted in your social media. I remember, I loved following it. It was okay, she's doing this, and just your sweet posts of the mug and but again, that part of social media was something I was supposed to be doing, or not. There's no supposed, but you did it in such a way that really made me feel like I was going along this journey with you, and you were exploring these options to make your experience more fruitful. So was that a conscious effort, or you were, I mean, yes, because you had said it in the post.
A lot of it was realizing that it'd been 3 or 4 years that I was talking about this. And for someone who loves spending her weekends reading and learning new things, and especially with the self-help motivational sector, I had the tools. I knew what I had to do.
Right.
But it's easy to know that and not actually incorporate it into your life.
Right.
So it wasn't a success overnight. There were some weekends I would end up going out. There were some weekends I would end up drinking.
Which is okay.
You know?
Yes.
But when I really put my mind to it, I remember I got lunch with a girl from high school who runs her own PR company, and I was telling her about Struck Inside Out, and I was saying, you know, I really want to publish this book, but I'm kind of stuck. And I was telling her where I was at, and she's like, if you really want to do it, why aren't you just doing it? I don't get it. And it was really simple, but it was really blunt.
Right.
And it's kind of like the tough love I needed,
Yeah.
where I was like, she's right. Well, I'm making this so much more complicated. No, I can't do it.
No,
you know?
yeah,
like,
we do that though. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I can't do that because you have this idea where it has to be done a certain way.
yeah.
Whereas, as I say, the opposite beauty of social media is like now everybody can put their music out there, and then there's a negative to that, right? But yeah, it is. It's hard. Again, it's always the simplest things are
yeah.
always the hardest. But yes.
So then I decided, okay, this is the date that I want to publish it by. And so that's when I decided
love a deadline.
Yeah, that works
We
for
love
me,
a deadline.
for sure.
Yes.
So that was when I decided to shift things. And it wasn't easy. It certainly was difficult. But there's that quote that's overused now on Instagram, but they say the freedom that you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. Or,
Ooh.
you know, or
I haven't seen that one yet.
yeah, the freedom you're looking for, or the happiness you're looking for, is in the work you're avoiding, or the discipline you're
Yes,
avoiding. It's
that is
something
that
like
resistance. That, you know, the other form of that is like what you're resisting is truly like what will allow you to bloom. But
Yeah.
it's just really that is resistance on that schema of what you thought should be. What I'm also interested in, because how we met was at this incredible, another incredible entrepreneur, Paul Vibes, shout out. And you were doing an event where, you know, she had her books out. It was a pop-up. You know, this is now the opposite side of self-publishing, where, you know, you don't have PR right away, or you don't have a publishing house behind you getting it out there. Same with me, right? Like my music, I have my deal with the Orchard through my record label, but I'm the one in charge of marketing and publishing and PR. I'm hiring PR, who's incredible, Zenobia. But you know, that's now your job. Now we're business artists, right? We're not just responsible for writing the book or writing the song. Now we're the CFO, the COO.
Yep.
So did you ever have moments of like, oh gosh, if I would have just really tried to get a deal?
Well, I remember when I did the Hay House Writers Workshop, it was years and years ago, even before Struck Inside Out was even a thought in my mind. And they said one of the biggest misconceptions about publishing is people think they publish a book, they're an overnight success, they take a trip to the beach, you know, and then that's
write
it.
the next book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really, even if you are traditionally published, you are in charge of your book tour. You are the one that has to, like, I'm sure you have help from them, but
Right.
you're the one that's really promoting yourself still. You have the distribution of a big publisher, so they're
Right.
going to send it out to different states. Struck Inside Out is really only in stores in New York from me going and walking into stores and representing myself.
Drive, ambition, like love that.
Yeah. So that's one thing, because I remember I thought that. I was like, oh, I'm going to publish this, you know,
Yeah.
years ago, and then I'll be a big hit, and it's just not like that. But I have to say, right now, I don't really love doing the pop-ups anymore because I did it for so long. And I'm
Right.
focusing on a second book. But I really made sure that whenever I showed up to a bookstore to do a workshop, if I ever showed up to a book market or a vending opportunity or whatever it was, whether it was free, whether I made a sale or 5 sales or 10 sales, I was really intentional with how I was showing up. Sometimes I look at the book and I'm like, wow, I actually did that. Like, I can't believe, but not like tooting my own horn or ego,
No, but
it's
we
like,
don't. We don't celebrate
I was
the
like,
joy.
how did I do that?
Yeah.
Because now it's taking me so long to even write this other book that I want to work on. So I'm like, how did I do what I had to do then? You know?
Yeah.
And so when I see that and I'm like, you did that. You woke up in the mornings, you stopped drinking, you did all of this. It feels very spiritual. It feels very meaningful. And so I try to extend that energy whenever it comes to that.
Yeah.
And whatever I'm doing. So I try not to look at it as a nuisance or a burden. The dream would be to eventually have somebody do that for
Right.
you, but I try to romanticize whatever stage of life I'm in, because why not?
We're almost into habits, but I love the idea of romanticizing whatever stage you're in, because what you just witnessed was so rooted in my perspective, in which I've been shifting a lot in my life, which was kind of the lack mentality viewpoint of, now, as an independent artist, I got to lug all this and I got to bring that and I got to bring that, which is a negative viewpoint, not a judgmental negative, but the idea of I'm trying to get something and whereas coming forward with the intentionality of, which I've been shifting into, of this experience was so organic that if I didn't show up intentionally, and I'm pointing because in the studio I was shooting another show here, if I didn't show up intentionally and learn who the man who owned this building and what he was doing and his experiences and seeing what he was doing and watch what he was building and really intentionally kind of being present, this wouldn't really exist. And if I, and then you kind of do those ifs. If I didn't do that show or that, that's the fun game to do. But that intention, that romanticizing, that comes from caretaking and your conditioning, because I come from, you got to think about the worst because that's what prepares you, which is a technique. For my personality, it was really draining, and I realized that's why I was always anxious and depressed. But I love that idea of romanticizing, which isn't saying everything is perfect and everything is great.
No.
But giving almost like a beauty to things that you can easily say, oh, this is so annoying.
Yeah.
And I love that, because that is an intentional choice to make. And then everybody says, oh, just see the finer things in life. But no, that's then you're now making your experience so much more fruitful, because you're not then wasting your time, because everything is everything is a step.
Yeah.
Which is hard to see. That is something that I'm now stepping into. But for a very long time, like you said, it's because of society, it's everybody's an overnight success, and they don't show what it took to get there. And in reality, there was the Miss J experience if I wasn't sitting by myself on the subway going, oh, well, I'm a rock artist and it's about my band, it's about the musicians, it can't be about me. So now I made this band name, which I was making out of lack and fear. I was like, it has to be a band name. But then that became confusing. Where's the band? The band changed every time. It was who I was singing with. And it kind of all came about that way. But if I didn't take that first step, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. So it is interesting on how we do that. And was that a trait you learned now, or is that something you've always kind of done? That's what I'm always interested in. Or do you feel that grew in you?
My mom always called me a worrywart when I was younger, because I was always just so
You don't get that. So that's amazing.
I had attachment issues with my parents. It took me, I remember in first grade, I would cry and cry and cry when my mom dropped me off at school.
Love.
I was always afraid something bad was going to happen.
Yes.
I don't know where that came from. And then I grew out of it. But I think because I'm a big thinker, sometimes overthinker. Yep. That's why I write a lot, because I need to get it out of my head and on paper. I think between reading a lot and then training myself to training myself to think this way has now just become a habit.
Love.
It was not something, I would say years ago, it wasn't my personality, but you can change your personality through habits. You can change your personality. We all think that, well, this is just who I am.
Right.
But who you are is your response to your past experiences. So you can choose to even reframe your past, as everything you're studying.
Yes.
So I think also, I'm noticing lately, I have big dreams like you, but I'm noticing, especially with Instagram, we're a society that is so obsessed with being bigger and bigger, more followers, more this.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It's more opportunities. It's more of sharing your voice.
Right.
It's more of reaching your dream. But like you said, you see people that are successful and you don't see the 10 years prior of the books that weren't successful, of the late nights, spent worrying how they're going to pay their bills, you know. You don't see that. And yet when you see a lot of celebrities that make it big, so often they really miss those former versions of themselves that were scrappy, that had to do whatever they had to do in the moment, because there was that mystery and the unknown and working towards something. And it can be romanticized. It's not having rose-colored glasses. It's being present to what's there. Because I can either be like, wow, you know, my book didn't sell as many as I thought, or wow, I did this vending opportunity and not a book sold. Or I could show up and say, oh, well, I had really meaningful conversations today. Or
we met.
Yeah, you know, like, or, oh, like I know how to present myself now, or at least I'm promoting myself. There's always that choice.
Yeah.
And that choice is what's going to determine your experience in life.
This is why I get so inspired with people, because you transitioned perfectly into our segment and final segment of these habits. Like you said, this is brain plasticity. You can, you know, long gone are the days where we thought you can't learn a language later, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Nope, it's just brain plasticity, and it takes a little longer, and you have to fight a little harder for it because you've conditioned yourself for so long. I love that you brought up the habit of romanticizing. I think that should be like, I love that word. I think
me too.
It feels like an old word, even though it's not.
Yeah,
I just think that, it feels vintage, or what, you know, retro is all the kids are saying. But, you know, we don't use that word because we don't romanticize anything anymore. I think, you know, the poetry, or like we don't, you know, everything's about sometimes on social media showing too much of the nitty gritty, and there is no romanticizing.
No mystery.
So normally I ask the 3 habits, but I'm going to staple that as 1, because that's something, especially in this culture and climate, I think we can all afford to be a little more romantic with ourselves,
Definitely.
with our partners, with our family. And that's not just, people think romanticism is just sexuality. It's not. Romantic is, you know, picking up if, you know, your friend loves a certain flower or scent, or, you know, picking up a cup of coffee for your friend who you know is stressed out, i.e. me. No, but, you know, that is romantic. Romantic is showing up intentionally. So I didn't mean to cut that off, but I'm going to say that's the first one. What's another, you know, I love that you say writing things down. We talked about journaling last episode. You're reminding me to do that more because I do overthink, so I should be writing down my feelings more. What would be another that really helped you shift into this business mindset without feeling so inundated with like, oh, now I have to learn business? Like, what was a good habit shift?
I think, too, I didn't really always look at it as a business. I was having fun, and I know that's cliche, but really, I was always following my heart. I was always, you know, making the most of it, and just honestly enjoying sharing that along the way.
Yeah.
But I am a big believer when it comes to changing your mindset, which is really everything.
Yeah.
I leave Post-it notes everywhere. I have them on my nightstand. I have them on my car dashboard.
My sister does that. I love that.
Because think about this. I wake up in the morning and my favorite thing to do is read a few pages of an inspirational book. Something that will make me go into the day thinking differently.
Habit. That's a great habit.
But then I get ready and I get in my car and say somebody cuts me off. It's really easy in that moment to immediately forget what I read and get annoyed.
Yes.
And then if I don't have those little reminders in my planner on my work office desk, you will so easily slip back into autopilot.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how much effort it takes to stay on that positive trail.
Yes. Yes.
So leave reminders. I have a Post-it note on my nightstand and desk that says, how much fun can you have today, Danielle? So just that little question reframes the day. It reframes the way I'm showing up at work.
Yeah.
And when I look at it, it's a reminder, oh, it's not work. It's, oh, okay. Like I might have got annoyed at something or I might be stressed out, but that's my reminder. And that shifts, that energetic shifts. You come back to it as many times as you need to. The more you do that, the more you won't have to see it as much. It will become more part of who you are.
That's conditioning.
Yeah.
That is, I think, because we said so many great habits, I think one thing that I really want this platform to be such a great exploration of is you can decondition. I call it deconditioning, because when you think about the athletes that stand at the free throw line and do millions of free throws so that they don't have to think about it and it's in their body, you can actually also, that is basically personality conditioning of those formative years. And I think because people think their personality or the way their habits are so out of their control, and that, oh, this is just who I am. Like I was a very depressive, and I thought that was just who I was Eeyore, always so depressed, you know? And I really, like, it not only was not who I am, but it took a long time to realize that was just a habit, because I was waking up and definitely not seeing the fun and joy in the day. And that shift of, now to me it's passion and it's growing and learning, but this just inspired. This is exactly why I came here today. So tired of all that I was doing, truly, because every time I sit in this chair and I come here being, I'm so tired, or I've been doing this, I'm now so inspired, and I feel like I start like this, and then I'm like this, and this conversation is just the beginning with the incredible Danielle. This has been so amazing. I truly value you as a female artist out there. You're such an inspiration, and this is just the beginning. So make sure you join us next time when she comes back on, or keep enjoying the episodes as you do. And thank you so much for being here. This was amazing.
No, I loved this.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Look, you got me singing already when I'm so tired. Hey, yeah, let's go.